It's been a little while since the king of the underground and his men left the building, Layla says, writes, as she is looking around the large empty room. Should that we are standing in. Should we maybe go outside to see what's happening? No, Darren says. The king explicitly told us to wait here while they set up their defenses for the battle against the drones. He says he doesn't want the overseer to be aware of our presence initially, so that he'll miscalculate the number of drones that he needs to send to deal with his enemies. Or maybe the king of the underground simply doesn't trust us, and that was just an excuse to keep us from joining the battle, Kate says. If they already suspected, Darren says, then going against the king's order would make it even more difficult for us to set up an ambush properly. Don't worry, and the overseers said that he won't start the fight. Should we be saying this out loud? Until we are in our possession. I'm sure the king can call us while waiting for a few more minutes, seeing that nothing is happening. Just as Darren said, it didn't take long until one of the underground troops came to the door to announce that the king was expecting us. We all headed outside together, and we followed the king of the underground's envoy for about 20 seconds before the raging storm, until we finally reached the place where all the underground forces were stationed. There were about 100 men here, give or take, and judging by their auras, only about 10 or so were mages. Of course, I couldn't be completely sure of that, since the King of the Underground and Peter are always suppressing the magic from their auras, so there could be others doing the same thing. Some of the mages are still casting protective spells on the area when we arrived, while the warriors were just standing with their crossbows, swords, and shields at the ready, looking anxiously at the drones in the sky that were minding their own business, simply ignoring the armed men that were waiting in the middle of the open plaza during the city-wide quarantine. Why doesn't he? Maybe the drones are expensive. I was wondering, why doesn't he just use the drones for like kamikaze attacks like they're doing in Ukraine during a city-wide quarantine? Make way, the King of the Underground says to his men when he sees us approaching. I wish to speak to them. The warriors and the mages all step aside, leaving enough space for me and my friends to walk through, while the only two people who do not leave the king's side are, as always, Peter and Albert. As he is speaking, the King of the Underground is forced to use a loud voice to make sure that we can properly hear him, despite the noise that the wind is making. I'm going to skip the pleasantries, ask you all directly, the King of the Underground tells us once we stop in front of him. What do you think of our current situation? You mean why the drones haven't attacked us yet? Darren says, I don't know, maybe they're just waiting to see what our first move is. That would be one way to interpret this, of course, the king says, but I've sent a few scouts ahead to check, and I've been informed that there aren't even any drones trying to approach our current location. One would have thought that the overseer would at least try to ready some of his forces for the upcoming conflict, even if he is not planning to make the first move. However, the drones seem to be ignoring us completely. I can't help but wonder what is causing such an unusual behavior. Your Highness, are you there? We hear a man's voice coming through a transceiver that the King of the Underground was keeping strapped to his belt. I can hear you, the King of the Underground, the king says, after he taps the transceiver once. Tell me, what is it? It was just as you predicted, my king. The man says, the flying metal ball started to slowly advancing towards your position shortly after the outsiders exited the abandoned storage building. They must have been scheming together with the overseer this whole time, there's no doubt about it. What? The flying metal ball started slowly advancing towards your position shortly after outsiders exited the abandoned storage building. How does that work? Like, that doesn't connect anything, because the overseer already knows that we exist here, right? So he's obviously going to know that we are the ones that also are going to be joining the battle. If we look at it from the king's perspective, then he will obviously wait for us as well to come out, just to check if we are also going to be joining the battle. And as soon as we also join the battle, now he knows all the forces are outside, so obviously he's going to send his shit in. As we begin to hear an uneasy murmur coming from the king's underground, men gather around us. The King of the Underground lightly slaps his own forehead with his right palm. And what did I tell you to do if something like this were to occur? Gregory, the king says to the man from the transceiver. You told me to wait until you called me because you wanted to first hear what the outsider had to say in their defense. Gregory says, I'm sorry, my lord, I got ahead of myself, but this proves their guiltiness, surely. There should be no need to listen to what they have to say any longer. That is for me to decide, Gregory, not you, the King of the Underground says. This will be all for now. Please return to your post and I will be closing this channel. He then taps the transceiver in order to interpret his conversation with Gregory like he said. Well, the king asks us, after he sees us just standing there in silence for a few seconds, is there anything you want to say to us? Tell the king of the underground that he and Gregory are just jumping to a conclusion. Tell him that we were contacted by the overseer but refused to join his side. Then they were planning to join the overseer's side in this fight. Well, that's insane. So I'm just gonna go with the first one. They were jumping to conclusions. Don't you think the two of you are jumping to conclusions just a bit? I say. From what you said, it sounds like the overseer was simply waiting to see if you would join the fight as well, so that he could know how many drones to send to fight us. I see that you're still trying to hide the fact that you've been communicating secretly with the overseer through the blue crystals in the underground base, the king said. It is difficult for me to think of a reason for this other than you conspiring with him against us. He knows about a conversation with the overseer. Could it be that one of his men overheard us when we were talking about it in the tunnels? There you go again with the baseless accusation, I say, feigning ignorance. What proof do you have that we have been conspiring with the overseer except for these wild speculations? I think I've heard enough, the king of the underground says. As my friends remain quiet, Albert, Peter, make sure to keep an eye on them. If it looks like they're trying anything, don't hesitate to neutralize them. In the meantime, I'll go deal with the drones. Alone, my king? Albert says, surprised. Yes, the king of the underground says. I want to test something. He then taps his receiver so that he can talk to his scout. Gregory, how long will until the flying metal balls reach us? The king of the underground says. They should be there any minute, my lord. Perfect, the king says. Let's give them an easy target to shoot at then. After saying this, the king of the underground raises his arms, and then he begins to slowly raise in the air as a bolt of lightning from the storm can be seen striking somewhere in the distance. He can fly? Hardrick asks. I actually got this idea from your friend, Barry. The king of the underground shouts loudly from above, answering Hardrick's question. I heard from my men about the air current spell he was using to fly around, and asked my air elementalist if they couldn't come with something similar to what Melindra has been casting. He then does a few dashes through the air, and he appears to lose control for about a second due to the strong wind before quickly regaining his balance. The controls are a little crude, but I can make a few adjustments with my auto manipulation, so it's not that big of a problem, the king says. Now then, where are the drones? As the king of the underground flies higher into the sky, it is getting harder to see him because of the heavy rain, but it does not take long for the overseer's drone to take the bait and to light up the whole area around the king with their bright red lights. The king of the underground does not engage them. He instead makes a semi-transparent spherical barrier around himself made up of hardened aura, which is protecting him both from the drones' magical attacks and from the downpour of the rain. More and more drones are now flocking around the king's barrier, trying to break it with elemental attacks of all sorts. So they can cast elemental attacks. I don't remember seeing them ever do that before, but I suppose that one drone went apeshit, but that was, I suppose, the Magium. The king of the underground keeps baiting the drones for another minute or so until about 100 or more of them are surrounding him. Just as we are about to lose sight of him due to the high amount of metal balls swarming him from all directions, the king unleashes a shockwave so powerful that makes all the drones around him explode at once. Premonition check failed. What is my premonition exactly? 1. So yeah, there's no way we could have gotten that. Now Darren shouts to us as dozens of the metal flaming carcasses are dropping on top of us. All the kingsmen are running around frantically trying to avoid getting hit by them. He then shoves one of the king's underground's men to the ground with his shield and starts fighting the others as my friend prepare to follow his lead. Just as everyone is about to start fighting, Kay's whole body begins to tremble violently all of a sudden while she is arcing her back. Then she falls to the ground unconscious. What the hell? My first instinct is to hurry to her side, see if she is still alive, but then I quickly realize what must have happened. There are nobody behind her when she was attacked, so it must have been Albert who used an electric weapon of some kind to shock her while she was invisible. I have to tell the others about this. Guys, I shout, Albert is hiding invisibly with an electric weapon. Don't let him get to you. Is that what happened to Kate? Hardrick says as he carefully advances towards her to see if she is still breathing. Where is he hiding? I may not be able to hurt him because he is a local, but I can still grab him. I hold him in place for the rest of you guys. I don't know where he is, I say. Just be on the lookout, okay? And always watch your back. Well, Kate is alive, Hardrick says once he gets closer to her. She just collapsed. I wouldn't try to wake her up now, though. Might do more harm than good. Look over there, I tell Hardrick as I point my... But how are we supposed to fight even all this? Because the King of the Underground pretty much already took care of all the drones. And the 100 men are about to attack us as well, so... I don't know how we're surviving this. Well, Kate is alive, Hardrick says. Once he gets closer to her, she just collapsed. More over there. Look over there, I tell Hardrick as I point my finger towards 30 or so drones that have come out of nowhere and are attacking the ground troops. We have some reinforcements, and the king is busy with a new batch of drones in the sky, so he can't come and save his men. Now's our chance to. Just as I was about to finish my sentence, the red-eyed drone that were attacking the rebel fly higher into the sky. They begin to spin in place while the light from their eyes is blinking constantly. Are they about to call an orbital airstrike or something? Oh my! What the hell? My stats got locked. Warning! 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 We can hear the metallic voices from all the red-eyed drones chanting in unison as the blue crystals from within each of them are glowing brightly. We're detecting an exceedingly large number of drone units being destroyed within a short period of time. Now activating experimental emergency protocol in order to prevent further damage. Please stand by.